Alright, welcome back. So in my last video, I went ahead and transferred my mockup and all my assets over to my storyboard just to get it ready and set. I've also imported a custom font, which I shared in my last video as well. So if you're wondering how I got this set up and looking this way, go ahead and check that out. But now it's time to actually do some code. So I'm just going to leave everything as is. I'm going to clean up a little bit here. Just going to move some things around. I'm going to use my assistant editor, which should automatically go to the view controller because that's what I'm working with on my storyboard. So it should be set up. So here is just the very basic setup. So what I like to do, and I mean, I know that there is a way to go ahead and like just do test-driven development as you're building stuff, but I already know I can just drag and drop my outlets. So there are a couple outlets that I need, actually a lot of outlets that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and connect those now. I will show you how to do the first one, but then I'll probably speed through the rest of this because it gets monotonous quite quickly. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my buttons here. So on my 3 and my 5 button, I'm going to create a couple outlets for my buttons. So number 3 is fizz, and then I'm just going to name it fizz button. It's going to be of type UI button strong, because I know it exists. So I'm going to have it, you know, completely unwrapped because I know it's there. Number 5 is also going to need one, and that's going to be soda button. Okay, and then right now I'm going to go ahead and make my label buttons for all of my labels. So I will speed through this as well. I've created all of my outlets for my buttons and all of my labels here, and if you just scroll over, you can see they are all connected the way that they're supposed to be, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so now it is time to actually start testing. The thing is I want to make sure certain things happen when the game starts or when this view is uploaded. So let's go ahead and do that now. So the first thing I actually like to do is I like to actually go back to my view and look at my tests. So this always does this, and I'm not, maybe it's just me like not figuring out why it's doing that, but typically if you go to manual, you can find your view controller. Now I typically like to do assistant editor and have my test on the left and then my code on the right. It's just reading from left to right for me. It just works that way. And if it doesn't work that way for you, that is fine. It's totally fine. It's quite all right. So I have here just the very basic test here, and this is actually not correct. What I want to do is I actually want to set this up so that it's for view controller. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to rename this folder or this file to view controller tests. All right, keep that import. Sorry about that. But we can name this view controller tests for sure. We shouldn't have any errors. Let's build, just make sure nothing broke. Everything's fine. Let's go ahead and run these tests real quick to see if anything's broken. See if everything happens the way it should. So typically what happens when you run a test, it does pop up the little simulator because it has to run through and make sure it loads. So let's go ahead and do that. It's probably going to flicker.
Test succeeded.
All right, so my test succeeded. So everything is fine. So everything looks all right. I typically like to look through, make sure there's like nothing weird going on, because sometimes when I do tests and like say if there is something going on with the way I set up storyboard or anything, or like any of my constraints, sometimes it'll cause my tests to fail, which I've discovered. Unfortunately, like it's annoying. But I typically like to look through it just to see. So I don't need test example, I don't need performance right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete those. And I like to set up my setup and tear down kind of to make it easier to read. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is so for tests, they're kind of separate. So what we have to do is we have to give our test some basically a copy of our view controller. We got to give it an instance of our view controller. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we're just going to basically create a variable. And I like to do, let me back up. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable. It's going to be var sut. What sut means is system under test. I just don't want to type it all out, so I use like a little, I don't know, acronym, I guess. So I'm going to just do view controller and boom. All right, so now we have it ready. It's declared. It's not necessarily instanced just yet, but it will be. Okay, so now that I've brought that in, what I need to do is I need to do a setup because I have used storyboard. Now if you don't use storyboard, the setup will be totally different. But because I am using storyboard, I actually have to bring in a copy of that storyboard because it doesn't know anything about it. So let's go ahead and do that now. So let's tidy up this. Let's do setup storyboard. I'm going to use a guard statement in case it fails. So let controller equal UI storyboard. I'm actually going to hide this here for a second because it's going to get kind of long here. And I want name and bundle. So basically it creates and returns a storyboard object for a specified storyboard resource file. So I'm going to do name, and it's a string main, and it's going to be a bundle. And so what that bundle is, I have to call bundle, and what I want it is for. So returns an sBundle object with which the specified class is associated with. So this is for, and any class is actually going to be viewController.self. And then I'm going to instantiate it. So I'm going to do instantiate viewController with identifier. So it instantiates and returns a viewController with a specified identifier. So I forgot to give the viewController an identifier, but I will go back and do that in just a minute. So let's go with identifier, and it's going to be its name viewController. And then I have to specify, since bundle is any class, I have to specify that this is actually a view controller, a UI view controller. Else, we need to throw an error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return an XCT fail, message. And if you followed me on my playground with XC test, I do use an XT fail, and this is one of the uses I use it for, is if something fails when I instantiate something in my tests. That's typically when I use it. So this failure will come through when I run my tests. All right, so I've done that. And that warning is saying that I didn't use the controller variable that I set up in my guard statement, which I will do right now. So if everything is fine and this guard statement doesn't fall through, what I want to do is I want to set my system in test, under test, equal to the controller that's found on the storyboard. And then what I want to do is I want it to load the view if it hasn't loaded. So this is kind of a if it doesn't, do it type of deal. All right, so before I run this test, actually what I need to do is I need to go back to my view controller, or my storyboard, I mean. And I need to look at this. Actually, let me go back. I'm going to create a new tab. Because I also like to do this. I like to create tabs so that I can do a couple of things at once. So let's go to main, view, main storyboard. I don't know why I keep on saying view controller, but main storyboard. And I need to select my storyboard. And this is the attributes inspector. And what is the attributes inspector? No, here we go. It is the identity inspector. I want to give it a storyboard ID of view controller. And I want to use storyboard ID and save. All right, so now let's go back to my tests. And that should run. Let's go ahead and see if anything horrible happens. All right, the build was good.
Test succeeded.
So now let's go ahead and write a test. And if you followed my tutorial or my little intro into testing, there's one thing that I had mentioned, and that was that when I create a test, I just write a really long method name, because like I said, you won't ever retype this out again. So I try to make it kind of like a sentence. So I want to first say test, and then label values, and then what should actually happen in this test. So in this case, R set after view did load from storyboard. Now let's see how long that is. The thing is like I won't have to ever type that out again after I've just done that. It's more of like a documentation type of thing. So how am I going to test to see if the label values are set? So one way is just to do an XCT assert, and then we want to say equal, and I'm just going to test one. I know it's going to fail because I haven't done anything yet. And let's do the time label. So I'm going to call system under test dot time label dot text, and I should expect this to come out, where it's just set to 0. And then, like I said, I like to add a message. So time label should be set to 0, 0. Save. Now I know this is going to fail. If you notice, once I hit save and enter and everything is good, my little play button occurs. So I can just hit this and it'll go through the setup, pull in the storyboard. along with the view controller, initialize it.
Test failed.
And it failed. And so when I look down here, I can see that my test has failed. And it is the RSet, which is what I expected. So it does contain identifier view controller. Did I type it in correctly? Let's look at my main storyboard.
Test succeeded.
Okay. Make a note that you have to change main interface. No, you have to change. You have to go into the project and hit main interface, main storyboard, and then everything works fine. All right. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, and so the test succeeded after doing that. And the reason why is if we look at main storyboard, it is already set up that way. So if we go into the label and say we don't set it to that, and we run our test again, it should fail.
Test failed.
Yep, which is what I expected. So you have to be careful of those things. Let's see. So it says optional 00 is not equal to optional 000. So we need to fix that. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that when viewDidLoad is called, that it sets the time label. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do time label dot text equals 0000. Save that and let's run it again.
Test succeeded.
And that's exactly what we wanted. So now it's when it rolls through viewDidLoad, it automatically sets the time label to a default or a ready state. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the number label and the score label as well. I'm probably going to speed through this because it is a lot of typing. So let's go ahead and work through this real quick. All right, so I've created a couple more tests here. I have my score label and my number label, so let's go ahead and run that.
Test failed.
So, and that's exactly what I expected because I haven't set those up. So let's go ahead and set that up. Let's run it again.
Test succeeded.
All right, so I've got that set up. So the next couple things I need to set up is to make sure that the fizz, soda, and pop labels are empty at game start. So let's go ahead and check for that. And run.
Test failed.
And it's failed because inside my main storyboard they have values. So let's go ahead and remove those values. And the only reason why I'm removing the values is because I know that I won't need them right now, and I don't plan on doing anything with them at the moment. So we just want to make sure that they're empty, and they should be empty. They shouldn't have anything at all.
Test failed.
Oh, why did it fail? Oh, they failed because I forgot to do this. All right, sorry.
Test failed.
Okay, so this test succeed. I put the message in the wrong spot, so that's what happened there.
Test succeeded.
All right, so everything succeeded. But you know, the main thing to really think about though is maybe I shouldn't even worry about removing the label or the values that I had in there. I think it's actually best just to actually maybe create a method that clears them out. So let's go ahead and do that. So now if I run this again, it's going to fail because I put those back in. But I kind of just wanted to show you that
Test failed.
I wanted to show you that, you know, it does pull in the storyboard. It's actually looking at what's actually in the storyboard, so I know that it's actually working. So let's go ahead and actually create a function that will clear out those labels. So I'm just going to do plain clear label values. And then it's just going to be just a void function or void method. It's not going to return anything. It's just doing work. So what we're going to do is we're going to call all the labels. So the fizz label text should equal blank. And I'm actually just going to copy and paste this. And just do soda pop, save, and now that I have this function or this method available to me, I'm actually going to copy it and put it in my view did load. And there we go. So let's save that and let's run our test again.
Test succeeded.
And it cleared it out. All right. So that is the end of this video. I have shown you how I connect my labels to my project, how I edited my test for my view controller, I brought in storyboard, and created a test on my labels initial setup. So hopefully you join me next time where I will show you how I test my buttons and their actions. Remember, please subscribe if you want to get notifications, hit that bell, If this video has helped you at all, give it a thumbs up. And also, if you want to get a heads up on my videos and the topics that I cover ahead of time, please sign up for my email list, which is in the description box below. Thanks. Till next time.